A special guided nature walk, which is happening in Ennis this weekend, with a focus on the growing issue of invasive plant species and their impact on our environment. Ennis Tidy Towns has teamed up with Dr Frances Giaquinto, the plant ecologist botanist, for a walk through the woods at Lees Road this Saturday. I'm delighted to say that Frances joins me in studio, as does Mary Howard from Ennis Tidy Towns. Ladies, a very good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks very much for being with us. And Mary, from the Ennis Tidy Towns end of things, can you tell us how this walk at Lees Road came about?
We worked with Dr Frances in the past, and I think part of the Ennis Tidy Towns, or part of the Tidy Towns remit, is to educate. And we see plants all the time, but we might not realise that they could be a bit of a thug if they get into your garden, that they could be toxic, or they could be highly invasive. So and a lot of these plants, I suppose, come into Victorian gardens. Years ago, people were travelling and they want to come back with something different, but didn't realise that they could get rid of our native species.
We're living with the ramifications of it now.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we see it everywhere. So this is an educational piece that Ennis Tidy Towns are doing with Dr Frances to create awareness as to what these plants look like. They look harmless, but they're not harmless. We went for a cup of tea earlier, and I was telling Dr Frances that I live in a very old farmhouse, and we were the first children that were born in there. It's over 200 years old. But my mother used to say to us when we were little, "Don't touch that. That's deadly nightshade. Don't eat that. That's laburnum." She knew about these things. Yeah. So I used to always say to her, there was a yew tree, and they'd have lovely little red berries that looked like Smarties. And she used to always say, "Don't touch that." And I say, why do the people here not like children? That all these poisonous stuff, because it is quite attractive, a lot of these poisonous plants. So it's to create awareness about that. So from a very young age, I was aware that you don't put anything you don't know into your mouth, because like the laburnum, the seeds look like peas. And you say, oh God, sure,
they're enticing, but as you say, you definitely find out all about it if you did touch them or eat them. And Frances, maybe can you give us a sense of just how much more is out there that people should be aware of? Because when we think about invasive species, Mary's named some of them. I know we've spoken about perhaps one of the most invasive of them all on the show before, the Japanese knotweed. What else is out there that people might see in terms of common invasive plants that they should be aware of if they're not?
Well, yes, more and more we're seeing, partly as a result of climate change, but invasive species of all kinds, not just plants, but animals, microorganisms, fungi, bacteria, and vertebrates. Many of them are becoming invasive, and invasive means they cause economic and environmental harm. And as Mary mentioned, the old gardens can be sources of invasive species such as Japanese knotweed and giant hogweed, which were introduced a long time ago, and nobody realised how problematic they could become. But even now, people are... one of the things that I'd really like to kind of demonstrate tomorrow is how anybody who's interested in gardening, home ownership, farming, angling, all these things, we're coming across a lot of species that are becoming very problematic and impacting us directly. Now, one example would be cherry laurel. Now, it's probably one of the most popular of hedging plants, and it's great because it's cheap, it's evergreen, it's very fast growing. But what people don't realise is that it's very poisonous. And a few years ago, I think it was in Cavan, 32 young cows died because they were allowed into a field which had a cherry laurel boundary. And if you cut cherry laurel and say you take the cherry laurel to an amenity landfill, the prunings, you may find that you get a very bad headache, and that is because the cut foliage of cherry laurel can actually release cyanide. So this is just one example of how invasive species, without our knowing, can become directly problematic for us.
Okay, well, yeah. When you hear cyanide, Mary, you know it's really serious.
I'm going, ooh, I must grow some cherry laurel.
Tell us more about the walk tomorrow. When it's happening, kind of what route it will take, and will it be extensive? Because I'm sure it sounds like there is quite a lot to point out to make people not just to be aware of, but to be wary of.
Absolutely. We're meeting tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. at the car park in Lees Road, in the John O'Sullivan Park. So it'll be obvious we'll be there. Everybody's free to come and join us. It's starting at 11. We should be over by 1 o'clock. It's a free event. It's for young and old, people on their own, families. It's an educational piece, and I'm actually looking forward to it, because I have met, when I first met Dr. Frances, it was across the street here in Tesco about 8 or 9 years ago, where Ennis Tidy Towns did a pop-up and you had the vegetation there with you. So actually to see it in its natural habitat, like I remember you showing me the straight edge on the knotweed. And ever since then, I can actually recognise knotweed. It's as big as your hand, but it's got a straight back edge in it, as opposed to being a shape. So it's things like that you pick up in your learning, you don't forget them. So anybody who's anyway interested, they're more than welcome to come and join us tomorrow morning at 11 in Lees Road. Okay, and just to finish with yourself in this, Frances, I mean, you be highlighting the various invasive species out there. Will you be giving people simple steps they can take to prevent these species from spreading?
Absolutely, and I think that's one of the most important aspects of tomorrow's walk. It's to show people how we can prevent them impacting our lives, how we can prevent them from coming into our gardens, what we can do if they do become established, and the various actions that we can take when we're out in the natural environment to protect ourselves, to protect the environment. So absolutely, and we're also going to try and make it fun, so it'll be educational, but it'll be a fun morning as well.
Okay, absolutely. Brilliant. Really worthwhile venture, because I'm sure there's a lot of us out there who don't know just what's out there in terms of invasive species. Maybe we look at some of these things on a daily basis, not knowing just how harmful they have the potential to be. My thanks to Dr. Frances Giaquinto, and also from Ennis Tidy Towns, Mary Howard. Mary, thank you very much for being with us this morning.